And it's a good afternoon to the Sportzfan Radio panel and special guest today, golf extraordinaire, Sandy Jamieson. Sandy, you've had a fair history in golf, and what interested me to start off was 1ClubGolf. Now, before I turn the judge loose on you, perhaps you could explain to our viewers just what 1ClubGolf is. And I wish that had been around when I started.
Yeah, look, 1ClubGolf is, as it says, it's golf with just one club. So it's how I started the game. Sort of, my dad bought me a cut-down club. And then, for whatever reason, the industry lost its way for, I think, in my opinion, for 25 years, where they said if you want to play golf, you need to have 5 lessons before you start. You need to learn how to play all the shots and buy a set of golf clubs. And I believe that's one of the reasons golf went backwards for a long time. So with my 1ClubGolf, what I say is, with this one club, we'll have you on the course within 15 minutes and a good golfer within an hour guaranteed. And we've done that successfully over 600 times now. So we've never had someone fail to become a good golfer in their first ever session.
Is it a 7-iron?
No, it's it's a cross between multiple clubs. It's my special herbs and spices. So it's a fairly It's probably a longer iron in loft and a shorter iron in length. It's got a putter grip on it, so I don't have to spend time teaching people a whole lot of stuff about how to get around the golf course.
Okay.
It's not. I'm glad it's not a 1-iron, because Lee Trevino always said if there's ever a storm, lightning storm, hold up a 1-iron, because even God can't hit a 1-iron.
Yeah, exactly right. No, look, it's not, but. Look, that's part of the thing as well. So my definition of a good golfer, and for all you golfers in the audience out there, you'll probably agree when I say it, is a good golfer is someone who can play safely at a speed that allows everyone else to get around the golf course. They play within their skill level, so they're not trying to hit shots they can't hit. They look after the golf course and they're good company. That's all it is. Whereas I think a lot of people who don't play golf, and, I love speaking to shows like yourself because we're talking to non-golfers as well. Their perception of golf is it's a difficult game, whereas I think golf's the easiest game in the world. It's a simple game. Anyone can play it. Not like football or league or any other sport where you need people of similar skill levels to have a good time. A beginner can play with Tiger Woods, if Tiger could play, that is at the moment. But yeah, and have a great day.
I used to play off 9, then I went and had 3 kids. So I'd be happy to get out there with a cricket bat, I reckon. Maybe soon.
Sandy, you've been described as the undisputed champion for public golf, and that's by no less than Golf Digest magazine. Extraordinarily, you went from the club pro at Commonwealth Golf Club, which is obviously one of the better known golf clubs, to become the pro at Oakley, which is a 9-hole course. Can you just tell us why you did that?
Yeah, okay. When I first did it, everyone assumed I must have been sacked, because why would you leave Commonwealth to go to a public golf course? The reality is, this is pre-pandemic. When I started at Commonwealth, 2010, had a full membership and a waiting list, and a substantial joining fee. Then, sort of towards the end of 2019, there was no waiting list. There was no. The joining fee was still there. You didn't have to know members. The membership wasn't full. So I saw the business was shrinking, and that's not just Commonwealth. I mean, Yarra Yarra, Huntingdale, all these top courses that you used to have to wait 10 years to join, you could walk straight in. I then went and looked at public golf courses, and Oakley, for instance, had gone from 42,000 rounds 25 years prior down to 17,000 rounds. And it looked like closing. I couldn't see any other option. Like Elston, Wick and Melbourne closed. The pressures on public golf courses. Northcote's under fire at the moment, which I'm sure you've probably read in the newspapers. And, for all your listeners out there, and for you guys who are on screen with me now, if you play golf, put your hand up in the air. So just put your hand up, or if you're driving the car, just your finger up, folks. I want you to put your hand down or your finger down if you started playing golf on a private golf course. Well, I'll bet you nearly everyone's hand's still up. Everyone starts at public golf. So I love the game of golf, but if public golf goes, it's going to spell the end for private golf as well. And when I went back to public golf, what I found also too is that the perception of people in society is that all golf, all forms of golf was the same, and predominantly that's rich white men. The reality at public golf courses is nothing could be further from the truth. We have all sorts of people from different economic and social and cultural backgrounds, and it's a very cheap game to play. And I know I've been involved in the Northcote campaign, and when the people who are trying to save Northcote Golf Course pounded the streets, the people in the local area didn't understand what public golf was. So if you're listening to the show and you also don't know, public golf in Australia is subsidised by the council, and it gives everyone a chance to play a game of golf. So at Oakley today on a weekend or a public holiday, it's $20 to play 9 holes, or midweek concessions $13.50, whereas the nearest golf to it is private golf, and the cheapest fees at a private golf club within 10 days would be $4,000 a year. So,
Sandy, also one of the great myths of golf is that people get into it because they watch Greg Norman going around and think, I want to be like him. But I think the reality is somewhat different. Is that your perception?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and look, the golfing bodies themselves have spent a lot of money trying to find another Greg Norman in the hope that that's going to increase participation, because everyone has thought Greg Norman caused the boom. The reality is, since all the money's gone into elite golf, we've produced Adam Scott and Jason Day, who both reached #1 in the world, and golfing numbers did not spike. If you look at probably more to the core, and this is a really sad indictment on the game of golf, is if you watch the rise of golf with Greg Norman and you followed the graph that went up, and then when Greg stopped playing, it went down, there were 2 other graphs that were really interesting. There was a graph that pretty much exactly mirrored Greg Norman's rise and fall, and that was immigration from the UK and Ireland. And then there's another graph that went up with Greg Norman going up and continued up, which is immigration from Southeast Asia. So golf clubs and facilities didn't reach out to these new immigrants to our country and say, hey, listen, golf in Australia is not like it is where you're from. So these people from China, India, and so on are typically middle class. Compared to Australians, middle class, they had a lot of money. But in their countries, they weren't welcome on a golf course, and they wouldn't even think of golf. So part of what I've been doing at Oakley, where in the city of Monash, we've got 44,000 people who speak Mandarin or Cantonese, is I've employed a community coach who speaks Mandarin and Cantonese, and we've gone out to the community and we've welcomed them onto the golf course.
Well, this is what golf's been crying out for, I think, Sandy. For years, we've been talking about the fact that the average person just doesn't identify with golfers, and particularly women, I suspect, that they just don't see that that's for them. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, look, golf's interesting. The stats on golf are pretty damning. So over the last 25-year period, women's participation at club golf with handicap golf has gone from 33%. It was down to 19%. Post-pandemic, it's gone down to 18%. It's shrinking. And a lot of that is that golf clubs have not catered to the changing, this is my opinion, it'd be great to ask women more what they think rather than me just spout it out, but golf clubs haven't catered to working women because, I think in that 20-year period, most households, both the people in the house are now breadwinners, and women tend to take a greater responsibility for looking after kids and the rest of it. So golf clubs may have spent $14 million on a clubhouse in that time, on a nice new fancy function room, but there's no childcare there. Our priorities are a bit out. Having said that, at public golf, the percentage of women that play golf is higher than at private golf with handicaps, and that can be down to probably a few things. One is it's not necessarily competition-based, it's a social-based thing. But another thing comes back to the social inequality of women in the workforce. They earn $25,000 less per year for doing the same job than men. A lot of older women in particular. I was talking to some women the other day at a golf club. They were both professional. Actually, one was a lawyer, one was a academic. And when they started work, they weren't allowed to have superannuation. I forget what year that came in when women could have superannuation. So we've got an older section of the population who simply can't afford to be members of a private golf club. So, we need to total revamp, but I'm not sure the appetite's there at private golf clubs to change a lot because their membership's full because of the pandemic. So, why change?
Which is one of the extraordinary, I would have thought counterintuitive things of COVID, Sandy, is that golf seems to have gone well over COVID, despite the fact people weren't playing.
Yeah, look, it has gone well. I think that, and there'll be a lot of people in the golf industry out there who don't want me to say this, but I don't really care what other people want me to say. I think the pandemic's been really bad for golf. And short term, yes, the coffers are full and people are playing golf. For the most part, the people I saw on the golf course had a set of golf clubs tucked away in the shed that they hadn't used for years. They've come out because it was one of the few things we can. It's outdoors. Junior footy's been shut down. Footy in general's been shut down, and they've gone and played golf. And it's made the facilities in the clubs full, and therefore the facilities and clubs that were struggling before the pandemic that were starting to do different things like more flexible memberships, trying to entertain new ideas. They've now said, well, everyone loves our game. So, they've come back to what we were doing is correct. And I think that will change pretty rapidly. A lot of the clubs around Melbourne, their fees are due now. And I know I was talking to one club the other day, they've had 50 resignations and there's still over 100 people that haven't paid their fees. So we'll see what happens.
I was going to say that the time's a big part of it. I used to play cricket and I'd leave at 10 in the morning and only have a beer or two afterwards and get home at 8, sunburnt, bent over. With golf, you're not sort of getting there playing 18 holes, traditional golf, that is, in anywhere under 5 hours with your travel time and everything. That's a big chunk out of the weekend. And anyone with a family, you'd have to have a pretty supportive partner to get 5 or 6 hour leave pass, if you call it that, every weekend. Anything that's the same way with televised sport, like 2020 cricket took off, it's all over in 3 hours. And if you can get a golf game in an hour or two, that's a lot different to 5 hours regularly because people just don't have the time.
Absolutely. Look, you're right there in some ways, and I'll say you're incorrect in other ways. So, for instance, yes, if your idea of golf is that one person from the household goes out and plays golf and you need that 5 hour leave pass, yeah, that's a problem. But where golf's been pretty ordinary, has anyone on the panel ever seen it being advertised, bring your family and play 9 holes of golf, family golf? It's never been done. They segregate the game. They say it's a junior clinic or a women's clinic or a seniors clinic. I don't buy the time thing, and I'll tell you why. Or the money thing either. So at Oakley, if you want to play 9 holes of golf with the family at Oakley, it's going to cost you about $54. You're all getting concession rates. And you'll be round the golf course in an hour and a half to 2 hours total. How long does it take you to go to a game of AFL or league?
Yeah.
How much does it cost? So you actually take the family to a game. It takes up more than half the day, even though the game only goes for a couple of hours, tops with all the other stuff. And I think everyone says, it's not time. It's just our game of golf, it's unique because everyone can play together. You can have a 4-year-old and a 94-year-old playing, but the game of golf just hasn't reached out to that because they've been stuck in the old way of, okay, golf's a game for, a certain demographic of the population rather than just inviting everyone.
Before you get the red carpet out, though, you haven't met my 2 sons. I'll tell you what, if you can keep them active, I'll be very happy.
It's easy. Mate,
you might find that I'm driving off and with the kids.
Mate, I had... I was going to say we've had Shane Crawford's boys came out to Oakley and played, and you reckon your kids are tough. Crawford's boys, oh my God, they're like tornadoes. So, and they went around there no problems at all.
He was pretty wild back in the day too, in other ways, I think. But anyway, that's another topic. So, yeah.
Sandy, you mentioned Greg Norman before. Now, of course, and we've spoken about this on the show, the Super Golf League that he's trying to get up with Saudis, and well, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like the Saudis for a start, but talking about women and their views on that. But I just wondered if you could give us an idea as to where that's going and where you think generally world golf is going, because it seems to me it's in a bit of an upheaval stage at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I said the Saudis proudly nominated. They executed 81 people yesterday, which was pretty ordinary. They hit the news today. Look, I think you're going to get disruptors coming into the market for a few different reasons. The main reason is, for the most part, the PGA Tour golf has become the most boring drudge you could ever hope to watch on television. Apart from maybe 12 weeks of the year, you know, you've got the majors and you had Riviera the other week, but the majority of it's just boring. There's probably only about 20 players on the tour that would move the needle. Like, I mean, if you were going to watch golf, there's names there that you've never heard of, and it's not that interesting. You know, you'll turn on to watch Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Phil Mickelson, not anymore. But so the disruptors are out there because they see that the top players themselves don't want to be playing as often as they're playing, and they believe they're worth more money. And that's a pretty fair indication. Like Tiger Woods, when you look at all the prize money he's earned over the years, he's dragged everyone along with him. So the PGA Tour, for your listeners that don't know, is an organisation. It's a players' organisation. So it's owned by the players for the players, and all the executives' wages are based on giving more playing opportunity for the players. So because of such, you've got 125 exempt players. I think it's 42 tournaments a year, of which the top players only really want to play about 20 weeks. So you've got half the weeks of the year where it's a bit boring. Enter gambling money. So there's a lot of hedge funds and people out there who are looking at golf saying, geez, we'll make a lot out of the punt. And they're just going to keep throwing money, and they're going to keep trying to make changes. So, yeah.
So it's not the Saudis, Sandy, it'll be somebody else, what you're saying, but it's going to be somebody.
Yep, somebody's going to come in. My bet is the PGA Tour, from what I hear, are about to make a whole lot of changes. So they're going to try and steal all the ideas. The fall series, which was sort of after the playoffs, the TV ratings have been abysmal. I hear they're going to change something there, but golf will definitely change. Unfortunately, the PGA Tour staff don't have the incentive to change it for the better of the fans. For you and I, who might want to switch on the golf, you know, it's they're not thinking about us. They're thinking about creating player opportunities.
Talking about fans, it's the 17th at Scottsdale, where if you get a hole in one, the crowd goes absolutely ballistic.
Pretty sure it's the 16th, but yeah, they do go nuts. I used to coach Jared Lyle, and Jared had a hole in one there. And I mean, they start throwing beer on people and
throw beer on the green.
Yeah. Oh, look.
Is that the hole that Robert Allenby complained about? And the next night he's in a strip joint? he thought people were being unruly. He got so drunk at a strip joint, doesn't remember seeing any women.
Look, I used to coach Robert Allenby too for a period of time, so I'll plead the fifth there.
Okay, yeah. Is he a decent guy? He strikes me as a bit of a, not so decent, but no.
Oh, look, Rob's great when I think Rob's got white line fever. Like a lot of professional athletes, you meet them off the golf course, they're fantastic. He gets over the line. He's just super competitive guy. So, you know, and I think also too, because he was so good, so young, very few people around Rob ever said no to him or ever picked him up on things. So he does have that persona. But look, the work he's done for Challenge Cancer has been amazing, the amount of money they've raised, and he really does care. It's just, of course, he's such a competitor that sometimes says things that are maybe not that wise.
I read recently about Shane Warne. He was so competitive that you could walk into a revolving door first and he'd come out before you. That's how competitive he is.
I like that.
Just Andy, finally, where does this leave Australian golf at the moment? Because we, you know, you and I have, and all of us probably grew up with major tournaments in Australia, world, top players, Jack Nicklaus, etc. will all come out. And it just seems to me that we're getting less of the pickings every year. Do you see that continuing?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that for all the golf fans out there, all the people who want to see professional sport in the country, everyone should hope that the PGA Tour implodes. So that, the PGA Tour changes to sort of 25 tournaments a year of value that are during the US summer, because at the moment, with all the golf that goes on for 42 weeks of the year, our young players that you might want to see play golf, they can't come back to Australia because they've got to stay in America and play golf. Back when the PGA Tour was around that length, at the end of the year, you would have guys like, Nicholas Palmer, player Trevino. They all came out to Australia because they had contracts with club companies. So Slazenger used to make clubs for most of those guys.
Yep.
And they would come out here to play the Australian Open to fulfill their obligations. Whereas because the US Tour is so massive and plays every week, those players don't want to come. They can play for $8 million a week in America. Why would they want to come out here? Ernie Els used to come and play the Heineken. He got paid decent money to do it. But, because there was nothing else to play at that time of the year, he would come. So
we're also competing against Asian countries, Asian courses. I mean, China, Vietnam, New Zealand. So there's a lot out here, a lot out here, apart from Australia.
Well, I think the massive opportunity in golf, and this is maybe a bit of it shouldn't be left field. This is the opportunity. I think if things stay the same with the men's PGA Tour, we should forget about them and we should focus on the LPGA Tour and try and get a swing of great women's events across New Zealand, Australia, and then up to Asia, have a swing there, because quite frankly, the women's game's better to watch than the men's game, because the equipment's screwing that up pretty quick. The ball goes so far, all you're doing is watching driver and a wedge. I mean, that's like, I go to sleep when I put the PGA Tour on. Whereas when the women play, heaven forbid, they're going to hit a 5-iron like most other people into a green, not like these pumped up fellas who smash driver wedge and hack it out of the rough and hole apart. So women's golf's, I think that's our big opportunity.
My Greg Norman story. I was 16. I was a marshal at the Australian Golf Club for the Australian Open, and we were allocated a par 5, and I did 3 of the 4 days. The 4th day I was sick. I didn't miss much apart from Greg Norman holding his second shot on the par 5. And to this day, there's a metal plaque there. So what a day to be sick.
Good timing.
I would have been quite pleased right where he's hitting the thing. Anyway, that's all right. I've dealt with it slowly. He was a freak, though. I've never seen crowds like that. Tiger Woods, pretty similar, but I was there just before Tiger's world fell apart, and there was a dogleg par 4 that he lipped out on, and then a par 3 no one could play that he hit it that far. If he'd been up all night doing whatever, dating, he was certainly played all right.
Yeah, look, I think there's those once-in-a-lifetime freaks that we see in most sports, sort of once-in-a-generation freaks, and certainly Greg Norman was it, Tiger was it, Seve Ballesteros. Like, these people could do things other people couldn't do, and they did make the game exciting, but I will still say that it's not those superstars that get a lot of people into golf. It's mums, dads, grandfathers and whatever that get them into golf. You get interested in golf, and then all of a sudden you start watching the superstars. Like, he's in the park kicking the footy, they kick the footy, and they get taken to a game and they want to be like the stars.
All right, Sandy, listen, before we go, can you tell our viewers, if they wanted to have a go at 1ClubGolf, how they can do that and what it costs?
Okay, so simply my website is 1 as in the numeral 1 club.golf. So 1club.golf. And the cost of 1ClubGolf is the same as playing a round of golf. So if you want to come down and play 1Club, it costs $25 a player. That includes coaching, your green fees, and your equipment. That's as long as you're in a group of 4. So if just one person wants to do it, it's $100. 2 people, $50 each. 4 people, $25 each. And you can do that. Yarrawonga is up and operating. Oakley's up and operating. Mornington, we can do some. And hopefully we're about to get Sandringham up and going as well. So check out the website.
Well, it sounds
I'll bring the kids.
Do that. Fly them down from Sydney. I will look after them.
Yeah.
It sounds like a great initiative, Sandy. Thanks very much for being with us today. We really appreciate you giving us your time.
No worries, fellas. Good luck with the show.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Paul,
Right.
NRL round 1 starts on Thursday night. I don't think Penrith are going anywhere, are they?
Thank you. I tipped Manly to win it all, and they were woeful. They were really, really bad. So I certainly reminded of it. These days, modern life, if you get something wrong, there's a lot of people firing the snipers. But I'll stand by Manly having a great team. Penrith was just too hungry, even without Nathan Cleary. Their general, a lot of people got a bit carried away about that. We'll get to the Rabbitohs. They certainly missed their general, Adam Reynolds, but that's a different story. Penrith, very impressive, and not surprisingly, favourites already to win it all. So the bookies have reacted accordingly.
So the message I got from Schooner was he shouldn't be too crestfallen by that loss.
No, they're okay, but I've already had a look ahead next week. They've got the Roosters, and that's going to be a very interesting match. If they go 0-2, it's not that long a season. You don't want to be starting any season 0-2. Not quite as compressed a season as the NFL with 16 games, but 26 games. You don't want to be starting 0-2. So Manly's acid test will be next week against the Roosters. Now, the Roosters were humbled by the Knights. That was a big shock. I reckon if anyone's landed a multi on this round, it'll probably pay about the same as a Powerball jackpot because there's been some real upsets so far. Penrith are very impressive, and they've definitely been the team. I can tell you, though, for Storm viewers, they had a bittersweet win in that it was called the bravest effort Bellamy had ever seen. Now, he's about to coach his 500th game on Thursday night against my Rabbitohs, but that's the bravest out of the 499, if you don't mind, games. The reason is they were missing so many players, and they lost 3 during the game. And these names for you are pretty handy. Brandon Smith with a hand injury out for 4 to 6 weeks. Christian Welch, the captain, gone for the whole season with an Achilles. And George Jennings with an ACL. So the scary part of those last 2 injuries, they were done without contact. So they simply just fell on the ground. Whether it's a result of the pretty strong pre-season training they did, I don't know, but it was really frightening to see. The Storm, they get back a couple of decent players next week in Harry Grant and Cameron Munster. And that might be why they're quite short odds on Thursday night. I'll be one of the first in the ground against the Rabbitohs. So the Storm will be okay, but Craig Bellamy certainly looked a worried man late in the game and after the game. His press conferences are never boring, but he looked shell-shocked, even with the win.
Well, the doubleheader on Friday night, I'm going to look at the Canberra game first. How surprised were you, Canberra getting up over the Sharks?
Yeah, surprised me. We did talk about it, though. The risk for the Sharks, they've thrown all these gun players together. It didn't quite gel, whereas the Raiders have a relatively stable lineup. They used to be pretty tough home trip, up there with almost the West Coast Eagles in their prime, but that was a while back. The Sharks will come together, and you can't win a premiership in round 1. So I still think the Sharks will be up there. But well done to the Raiders, and they deserved the win. It was very close. It was a good game, actually. My Rabbitohs just woeful without Adam Reynolds. They've got a kid there at halfback, Ilias. He'll take some time. Reynolds wasn't there for the Broncos. If he was there, they would have won by a lot more. And that was a big shock because the Rabbitohs were very short odds, and I was expecting a win. So the Broncos revival is underway. The Roosters were humbled by the Knights, who weren't expected to be that good this year, and that was an interesting match. And then our regular listener Kevin Yap is not impressed at all about my predicting the Dragons to finish low. They had a win over there in New Zealand, which I think he thinks equates to a premiership. But anyway, we'll let him have his fun in the sun.
Paul, I was watching your Rabbitohs playing on Friday night, and with 5 minutes to play, the game did not look out of their grasp. Surely they were playing the Benny Hill music in that last 5 minutes. The number of critical mistakes made by the Rabbitohs, crazy plays. Can you explain that? Because it just looked like a team that didn't know what to do and were panicking.
Well, it's lucky Russell Crowe wasn't there, because he would have been in the grandstand giving it one of those ones from the Gladiator epic. You know who we needed there was our Napoleon, who I was very annoyed we let go, Adam Reynolds, because that's the reason why he was as good as what he is controlling the game in those key moments. We looked like a ship without a rudder, unlike that recent Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson movie where there's just a boat being steered by non-standard method. We didn't have anyone in charge of our boat wheel, and it's a worry. The kid is young, but it is a cauldron of rugby league. And next week against the Storm, I know this from the Storm, they put a target on a certain player. That's nothing illegal. They just bring a lot of heat, and I can tell you where the heat will be on Thursday night, and it'll be on the young Rabbitohs number 7. So he will need almost a bodyguard out there, Whitney Houston style. It's going to be a cauldron for him Thursday night. Are we going along, Professor? Do we have a date?
I'll have a think about it, Paul.
Let me know.
I'm a bit COVID wary at the moment.
I'm a bit nervous. we never win there, so I'm not confident either. So I might put the Smiths Chris jersey on and hide somewhere and just watch between like this, I think. So it's been an interesting start to the season. We've got a great match at 4 o'clock, the Eels and the Titans. The Eels are tipped for big things this year. All of us on here would like to see a Gold Coast team do well, though, in any code. And I think the Titans might do it this year, but I don't think they'll beat the Eels, who will be pumped, primed and ready to show that all these raps are warranted. And, Professor, your TV tonight will be firmly affixed on the Dogs match against the Cowboys, who I've tipped to come last. So I hope I haven't put the mocker on them, because at the moment, if I tip tomorrow being Monday, we'd wake up on Wednesday, the way I'm going with the tipping. So, I think the Dogs will win as outsiders, Professor, but don't go and get your super manager on the phone if you don't mind.
Should we not be a Nufty and bet on Matt Duffy to score a try?
At the moment, if I threw a dart at a board, it'd land in the wall, I reckon, at the moment. I think the Dogs will win in a high-scoring encounter, 26-22, I'd say. And I think that probably the defence on show will be about as good as Ivan Milat's up there tonight. You might see a lot of points scored, I reckon. We'll see what happens there. The Eels and the Titans probably be better quality football match. The Dogs, with all those superstars, I've never seen more turnover in a team ever. And the recruitment drive is off the charts. So how they all just get thrown together and expected to have some sort of chemistry and combinations, we will see.
So, Paul, just your scoreline for Parramatta and Gold Coast this afternoon, just for those who might be having a bet on the game.
Yeah, I think the Eels will win that 18-10 over the Titans. They're just going to be too good, I think. But I would love to see the Titans have a good year. I've got a soft spot for them. And I also want that area to go well. They'll have something to prove as well with the new team coming in, the Dolphins, because that's not too far removed. The Titans won't want to be seen as the black sheep, the underachieving team from that greater Brisbane area.
Well, can I just touch on the Dolphins? They're coming in next year, and that'll make the number of teams odd. How are they doing that? Because it obviously impacts the AFL with Tasmania, which I think will actually come in shortly. So how do they handle the Dolphins?
Well, they'll have a bye, and a bye is much wanted in rugby league town, because it gives these players a chance to rest up those niggling injuries. It's going to be a very tough season, which we're already seeing with the injuries to date. So the bye won't be too bad at all. Won't be great for the television, I guess, but there will be a new team coming in, so more games, obviously. So that's how the NRL will do it. With the Tassie team, that just has to happen. I can't see why that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Now, Paul, not forgetting, of course, that the NRLW is still going. One game yesterday, which amazingly, Judge, was played as a curtain raiser to the main game. The same team's playing. Can you believe that?
What a crazy idea, Professor.
We've got a fantastic game on now. The Dragons and the Broncos. Broncos are up 12-6. Dragons are pressing almost half time. So they're two very good teams. It's been a great season. So it's only a shortish season, 6 games, which doesn't sound much. But when you see how tough they're hitting each other, they might not want to play too many more than that. So it's an interesting match. And then we've got the Dragons and Broncos on now. The Roosters beat the Knights in the previous game, and then we've got the Eels coming up later on against the Titans. So we'll see what happens there in that game. But I'm still tipping the Roosters to rise, so we will see.
Now, Paul, just for those who are having a bet as well on the Eels-Titans game, that's 3rd versus 4th. Should be an interesting game this afternoon. Who do you think will win, and what will the score be?
Well, it's fantastic that the women's teams are matching the men's teams, and it's a good curtain raiser. I think that probably the Titans are on top there, so I'd have them at 22-16.
Well, it looks like it's been a great season being played out, Paul, and it's great to see it played when the men's are playing, and it doesn't seem to detract from it at all.
No, it's generating some interest in the game. It's a shortened, as I said, shortened season, and it's certainly adding some interest to the game. It's well worth watching, and it's good standard. It's very physical, and the skill levels are really increasing. You can see it each game.
Okay, Paul, thanks for that. Gelding, we might come to you because I see that one of your tips today is an Echuca at race 1, and people will probably want to get a bet on if I wait too much longer, that race will already run. So what are your best bets for Stony Creek and Echuca today?
Quickly, Professor, I do like one in the first up at Echuca, which is due at 12.50. Number 2, Lafargo. Damien Lane, Danny O'Brien. Look, it's around about the even money mark, so might get on there early. Then at Echuca, race 2, number 8, Pen Gegra, followed by race 5, number 1, Volator, and then we'll go race 6, number 8, my numero uno. Stony Creek, we just like to.
Can I just take you back to Echuca? Any jockeys not there to see the paddle steamers? Just to see for one horse?
No, very, very quiet day for the jockeys are up there. They're rather spread. 2 cup days, Echuca Cup, 1400 at Echuca. Professor, thought we might have had one in that race today, but unfortunately not after breaking down last start. But if we go to Stony Creek, Professor, race 3, number 5, Tantap Bow, and race 7, number 3, Eureka Street. Paddy Maloney in the Stony Creek Cup after riding 100-1 winner yesterday at Flemington in the Newmarket.
Can you just go back to Echuca race 1, number 2? Can you pronounce that horse again?
Lafarga.
Yeah, really. Have you lost the ability to read? Have you, Gelding?
Oh, whack!
Whack.
Yeah, read it out as it says.
What?
Lafarga.
Would you like to pronounce it?
How would you pronounce it, John?
I'm not going to. We probably have to have a 7-second button on the show, which I don't think we've got. But that's
sure
that's
there's a little vowel. There's obviously a French name in there somewhere.
We'll leave
it at that, John.
That's about as close as I've seen to being a band name. Fargue.
Tell me this, Gelding. How did that get past the people who were supposed to censor these names?
Well, probably their dictionary didn't have the French. They didn't have the French dictionary or something, Professor. Look, some of the names that get through are very, very interesting. Look, John, we'll leave it at that. Otherwise, I might be banned from the show for several weeks. I might get a red card from the professor if I pronounce it how it's spelled.
It's just
if I ever had a horse, I wanted to call it Wooshka, but that's already taken. There is a horse called Wooshka, goes Wooshka. So.
Yes. There's been plenty of others.
Okay, gentlemen. AFLW, there was an age report during the week, Judge. It said AFLW season will, and I'll come back to that word, will be brought forward to begin in August with round 1 to be played in the AFL pre-finals bye week. A little bit of digging further just shows how can we say, wobbly the will was. The AFL Commission had given provisional approval to that change. Now, provisional means possibly to change later. So it's the announcement that sort of, my thought was, they're just running this up the flagpole to see exactly what the response is. Believe me, on social media, women didn't like the call at all.
Look, I'm not surprised, Professor, and I just wish they would, the AFL would stop this. I wouldn't say bullying, but the way they just treat the women's game as if it's just can be changed at a whim, just because they think it's a good idea at the time. Somebody, as you say, flew it up a flagpole. I wish they'd just leave the game to the women and just say, how do you want to play your season? I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect they prefer to have what we would call a normal season, where they're playing in tandem. They've got the 18 teams now, and I think that's coming too quickly, but putting that to one side, why don't they run the season as a full season or close enough to it? Gelding, you've got a view on it?
Yeah, John, just a question for you. How are you rating the performance of Nicole Livingston as head of women's football? Is she one of the boys just going along with whatever the AFL want to do, second up? Because it doesn't seem to have a plan. And as we've talked on this show quite regularly, common sense tells you they just run, the women's game or the men's game as a curtain raiser for the other one.
Well, she's not Nicole Volandis, because that's what the women's game needs. They need somebody who just says, listen, guys, we are not a second-rate competition. We're as serious about this game as you are, and we want to have the game played on our terms, because the AFL, of course, controls the whole game Australia-wide. And as I said before, they run the Menangatang thirds. It's just because they feel they have to control every single aspect, and the women's game is absolutely suffering because of it. Look, Nicole Livingston, I don't know. She strikes me as a very nice person, but I think she's up against it with the AFL, which, as I say, just control everything.
Yeah, not saying anything, but she presents well, talks well, looks very, but nothing seems to be happening with the women's comp. And she's responsible. Her job is solely to get it up, but she just seems to be, pandering's probably the wrong word, or just going along with whatever the AFL seems to come up with the latest plan. We'll shove it here, we'll shove it there. We won't put out a draw, we won't do anything. There just seems to be a lack of leadership there.
I suspect there's a real disconnect between what you think her job is and what her job has actually become, which is to implement what we, the AFL men, tell you and sell it to the media, will you? And from that point of view, I think your job's just about impossible.
Isn't it called rubber stamp, John?
I think that's what it seems, Professor. But you wouldn't know, because I don't get. I don't know you, Paul. You do more social media than I do, but I don't know any. But does she come across on social media as being, a very powerful voice of the game?
I haven't seen her on social media.
Oh, there you go. So that's that's a bad start.
Well, that's it. You never see it.
More from Elvis.
Now, look, John, I think we agree on this program anyway that the hallmarks of good management are consistency and certainty, and that's all anybody wants.
Yeah.
How can this possibly play into what good management is? Because if you read on further in that article, it says that the decision about when the season will start is contingent on the approval of all clubs. So the AFL isn't even taking responsibility. Whatever happens here, they'll say, it was the club's fault.
It was their fault, because one club didn't agree with it. That's nonsense, and as hopeless management, if that's what's actually happening.
Do you think?
Isn't it just an announcement to have an announcement and then be able to backtrack on it later on? We want to do this, but it depends on the clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, can you see the AFL Players Association, on behalf of the men, agreeing to a 4-month turnaround in the men's season?
No.
Yeah. Well,
ain't going to happen.
how many issues are being trampled over just to get this up and running and get it out? Because I can guarantee one thing: the AFL are keenly aware of the criticism, a lot of it from this show, about why the women's season shouldn't be played in the hot months of summer. So they're keenly aware of the criticism, and they're trying to put it somewhere, but they're not going to put it at the same time as the men's season. This is about the only other place they can put it.
And Mark, you raised the AFL Players Association. As I understand it, they're also supposed to be the association for the women's game. They get so much money, I think it's $30 million a year from the AFL. There's no way that they're going to bite that hand that feeds them. And again, women's football is just going to be left out, because any players association worth its salt would not be standing by idly and watching the game, women's game, being thrown around like a rag doll the way it is now. That's the way that I see it. And it's really interesting to listen to Paul about the rugby league. You could say, oh, look, isn't it AFL so much better than the NRL? Well, I don't know. It seems to me that the women are controlling the game, that they're not playing if the teams aren't up to scratch. They sound like they're all good teams. They're hard at it. So that's what you'd call a slow build. And I'd rather a slow build than this, all in 18 teams in a short period of time that they've had.
All right. Thanks for that, Judge. Now, Gelding, going to come to you. We've got a cricket topic today, and that is, given what we saw in the first test, or what we didn't see wickets really, in the first test in Pakistan. My call is for independent grounds people to prepare the pitches so that one country can't try and spike the guns of another country, as Pakistan have admitted to doing. What are your thoughts, Gelding?
Countries doctoring wickets to suit their players. Does it happen, Professor? What about India? India have been doing it for 30 years. The West Indies did it for their pace bowlers. The Poms do it so the ball swings.
The Wacker does it every year.
Yeah, look, it's been going on for ages. Australia used to have Queensland, Sydney used to be a spinner's wicket. Melbourne's wicket used to run along the ground, so don't play across the line. Wacker used to bounce. Pakistan were never going to lose a test in Pakistan when they hadn't played there for 24 years, Professor. The safest bet of all is get on. It'll be a 0-0 result. Could you imagine? They had 4,000 army people surrounding the game when they were playing there. The first tips just got up, Professor, at Echuca, won by 5 lengths. So I'll let John pronounce the name for us, but we'll go on from there. Number 2 is won by 5 lengths. But
yes,
look, Pakistan have been preparing this wicket, and the next one will be prepared and all that. But what about Australia selectors, Professor? They've seen the pitch that's been presented, which is going to be like the Hume Highway. It's not going to move either way. It's not going to get above hip height unless you drop it halfway down, 3/4 of the way down the pitch. And they've gone in with 3 seamers. Fantastic for Australian conditions. Fantastic for England conditions. Why didn't they pick up 2 spinners? You've got the GOAT there who bowled well, but that didn't look like taking a wicket. And they've got a leg spinner there that they've just decided to leave out. Instead we'll go with our fast medium pace, just outside off stump. And you saw the result on what was a wicket that didn't allow for movement. And the Pakistani openers were certainly not going to get out. Otherwise, their houses probably got burned down, Professor. So, look, I'm tipping a 0-0 result. Like, these pitches will be roads, so they just can't lose a test, you know. And for Pakistan to say, hey, we've played a home series, first time in 24 years, and we drew the series. You know, that's how it'll be looked on in years. But what you said, Professor, we need wickets that give results. They're supposed to be even, you know. Batsman's got to have a chance and a bowler's got to have a chance.
Gelding, is that GOAT the most ridiculous nickname in world sport?
Yeah.
It's a fairly good bowler, spin bowler. Last week, it just becomes more and more. It's almost ironic that he gets called that. His other name, Barry's a bit weird.
Yeah. Nathan Lyon, a very, very good off spinner and things like that. But as you said, with the passing of Shane Warne, I think it's universally accepted he's been the greatest leg spinner of all time and arguably, you know, the best bowler of all time. In our generation, we always thought the best two bowlers were Lilly and then Warne, or vice versa. A lot of people older, of course, think that Ray Linwood was, you know, the icon of all bowlers. But, you know, Warne's record just speaks for itself. You know, seeing all the highlights, you forget just how good he was and how he was able to win test matches, Professor. He was the type of guy needed in Pakistan where you could get wickets on the last day and win test matches. Nathan Lyon, a very good player, but not up to the standard of Shane Warne. And there's probably, GOAT was originally named for Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all time. And probably that would have sit a lot better with Shane Warne than Nathan Lyon.
Gelding, interesting listening to Sandy earlier about whether golfers start with Greg Norman. It's because a mate introduces them. When Warne was at his in his pomp, everyone was saying, "Oh, Australia's going to be the nursery for spin bowlers, leg spin bowlers." Hasn't happened, has it? Although I see in this test, we've crowned a new debutant leg spinner.
Yeah, Swepson. Look, there's more leggies around. You see more, but you know they haven't got the goal that Shane Warne had. You know, they're very good bowlers. I'm trying to think of the leggy that plays in the 2020. Yeah, he's a very good bowler for that game of cricket. Zampa. Yeah, Zampa. He's very good. You got Swepson in the test side and things like that. Very good. There for a while we were kind of spoilt with Warne, and then when someone comes in, they can be very good test players, but they're not the champion that Shane Warne was. So, yeah, look, I just think going back to the Professor's original question, do we need independent people to make test wickets rather than vested interest? Professor, you would hope that the International Cricket Association more or less comes out and says that they've got to prepare wickets, subject to weather, of course, that give batsmen and bowlers an equal chance. But is that going to happen in Pakistan? I don't think so.
Gelding, I think the last spin bowler for Australia was Steve Smith. Is that right?
Leg spinner. Yes.
Spinner,
yeah, he was picked as a leg spin bowler and batted number 7 or 8. And then he's given that up and all that. But, yeah, now we have in the test, Labuschagne bowls a bit of leggies and Steve Smith very rarely bowls. But, yeah, different.
What I was interested in with Warne, he had that shocking leg injury as a child. So he developed this, it was almost like a wheelchair contraption, and he had to use his hands. So he had the most amazingly strong hands. And it's only for that reason that he could walk up slowly to the wicket. If anyone else bowled at that pace without spinning it as much as he did, it'd be hit into the next suburb. So that's why most spinners like Stuart McGill, for example, had to run up with a bit of speed already in their delivery, because Shane could just throw it up like a cream puff, but because it actually fizzed through the air, that's how much spin he was putting on the ball. That's not something someone with normal hands could do.
Oh, McGill was a sensational bowler, and his record shows that.
Yeah.
But Warren was that class better. And look, with Warren, I think where we got to see the best of it was in the Big Bash, where he actually talked. He would tell people what he was doing and the way he would set them up, and things like that. Then it's the Big Bash now with when he bowls the New Zealand keeper opening bat. He talked the listeners through, and he set him up over a couple of balls. Gave him a high looping one, so he tried to charge, didn't quite get it. So of course he went to the sweep, and then he put a faster one in on the stumps, and of course it bowled him. Hoping for the LB, and I suppose that's where the greatness comes from. It's good to have the plan, but then you got to have the ability to back it up and get results. And look, that's what Shane Warne did. So, but Professor, back to your original questions, if you cannot trust the countries to prepare wickets professionally to give everyone a chance, you might need independent people going around preparing test wickets. Maybe like the umpires. Pre-COVID, the umpires, Australian umpires never umpired in Australia. So whether you have that or not, I'm not too sure.
Gelding, one last question about this current test. Khawaja, 127 not out. I think it proves what you were saying before the series started, that he would have a great series because roads, concrete strips were going to be produced.
Yeah. And look, Khawaja's a little bit such, the Poms figured him out. He didn't like the short ball and all that, but over there, he's not going to get the short ball. And he's just a beautiful bat once he gets in and going, Professor. So, look, the Pakistani tour is going to be if you're a batsman, you'd want to come home with a good average. The bowlers will probably have shocking averages. Like I think the GOAT, Nathan Lyon, ended up with 1 for 238 in the first test. So, that's just, a batsman's game, Professor. They're the type of wickets you need for 2020 games, not test games.
Fair enough, Gelding. All right. Thanks, gentlemen, for today. Much appreciated. And until next week, it's a very good afternoon to you all.
See you, boys.
Thank you.